Good afternoon, Mr. Davutoglu.
Good
Thanks for
afternoon.
your time. Both in Europe and in the US, there are often complaints about Turkey. Many, for example, wonder how a NATO member country can maintain equal distances, as they say, from both the West and Russia, while also possessing Russian defense systems such as the S-400s. Do you believe that NATO membership should be accompanied by certain core principles, or is it ultimately a transactional relationship that offers flexibility in terms of foreign policy?
Yes, Turkish geography and geopolitical orientation needs a multidimensional foreign policy. We are not in Cold War. In Cold War, a member of NATO should have been much more careful in its relation with Russia. But now we are not in Cold War. There is a new geopolitical environment.
So the times are different, you say?
Yeah, times are different, but it depends. The main question should be, is Turkey complying or implementing all the NATO decisions as a member country? I think Turkey never ignored any responsibility or any right of Turkey in NATO. So Turkey has
S-400s?
I will come to that point. This is something which is a principle. About S-400, for many years, Turkey has negotiated with United States about Patriots and also with Europeans about missile defense system of European, French, Italian. So there has been a long negotiations. At the end of the day, I was not in the office when S-400 was bought. There was such a decision. This is, of course, part of a defense strategy. But if you ask my opinion, I would never accept or allow Turkey is out of F-35 project because of S-400. This could be discussed in NATO, but Turkish-Russian relation is a must as a neighbor, and Turkish policy when Russia invaded Georgia and when Russia attacked Ukraine, we had a very principled policy as a member of NATO and as a neighbor of Russia. Many other countries have similar relations with other member countries of NATO. They have bilateral relations with Russia, strong bilateral relations. German-Russian cooperation on energy is not less than Turkish-Russian cooperation on energy.
Yes, but they don't possess defense systems.
Yeah, as I said, this should be discussed in NATO. A solution could be found, but this happened after I left my office. I don't know in which conditions these negotiations were conducted, but I think it should not be seen as a barrier between Turkey and NATO.
This brings us to my next question. How are Ankara's relations with Washington shaping up after the election of Donald Trump? Would you say that President Erdogan has better chemistry with President Trump compared to President Biden?
Of course, chemistry between two presidents or two leaders is important, but more important is the institutional relation between two states. Presidents come and go, but Turkish-American relations persists and survives. So, of course, it is important, as I said. Similarly, when I was Minister of Foreign Affairs, Erdogan was Prime Minister, and he had a very good chemistry with President Barack Obama. When I was Prime Minister, same. But with President Trump, it is different. Why? Because President Trump is someone who is not predictable. So sometimes he may have a good personal chemistry, sometimes very negative personal chemistry. We have observed this. His first meeting with Zelensky in White House was very much different than his meeting with him in NATO summit. So therefore, I do not rely on personal relations. I look at strategic connections, and for the future of two states as bilateral relation, If that is well established, personal relation is an asset, positive asset. But if that is not established, I cannot forget President Trump's humiliating letter to President Erdogan in his first term, which for me as former Prime Minister of Turkey, which is not acceptable. And at that time, I suggested our president send this letter in the same day back to Trump, because Turkey is a country of historic dignity. So we have to respect each other. I hope President Trump will approach the Turkish-American relations from this perspective, not based on personal relations, which may change from day to the other day.
Turkey's supportive stance on Hamas is that the organization has the right to defend its people against Israel. That said, on October 7th, 2023, we witnessed brutal attacks against civilians, including rapes and the abduction of hostages, among them infants. Is this truly a way to defend one's people?
I think I fully agree with Antonio Guterres, who was my very close friend, and still we are in contact, when he said 7th of October did not occur in a vacuum. Those who are trying to legitimize Israel's genocide in Gaza, they want to make 7th of October as the beginning of history. Gazan people, Palestinian people lived under Israeli oppression, apartheid system in West Bank, in Gaza, full isolation for last 75 years.
But is there a danger to legitimize Hamas actions on October 7th?
Look, we don't know what exactly happened 7th of October. As 139 leading politicians, academicians, international law academicians, and journalists, we made a statement in December 2023 asking for a full investigation and asking to stop genocide in Gaza. So I have been in Gaza in 2012 war. I know what they lived under Israeli bombardment. The issues could be discussed. I was mediator between Israel and Syria in 2008. For 2 years, confidential mediation I conducted. So I know both sides. When Ehud Olmert was prime minister, we were very close to a peace between Israel and Syria. But 2 days before the arranged summit, IDF attacked Gaza. Sometimes there are certain circles in Israel. They want to provocate the tensions just to control for them the promised land. There is an option in front of Israel. Either Israel will accept one-state solution, which means Palestinians and Israelis, they will live in one state, one man, one vote. This is an option. But when you say this to Israelis, they say, no, because then we will lose Jewish character of Israel. Okay, the second option, two-state solution. Then in last Netanyahu administration, they never made reference to two-state solution. So what do you expect from people of Gaza or from people of Palestine? Being a slave.
Not to take hostages, actually.
No. Being a slave. Gazan people have been taken hostage for many years. The world didn't do anything. I can say 2 million people now have been hostage of Israeli embargoes, sanctions, and isolation. Did you see any Palestinian child who did not see any other street than his own street in Gaza? Now, 2006, almost 20 years under blockade. This is, those who are not saying anything against this, they are criticizing Gazan people. It is, for me, it is not a matter of Hamas. It is a matter of Gaza. It is a matter of Palestine.
Israel accuses these people for terrorism.
You know, that is Israelis' terminology, not our terminology. If people are being oppressed, despite of international law, if people are being massacred, if people are being treated as apartheid, that people have the full right of resistance. So therefore,
point taken.
Therefore, for example, leave Hamas aside. Mahmoud Abbas made a deal with Yasser Arafat, made a deal in Oslo and Madrid conference 35 years ago. International community
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, they made, according to that agreement, in a few years, full-fledged sovereign Palestinian state should have been established. Did they establish? No. And once Yasser Arafat was declared as a terrorist, in 1970s, 80s, and Yasser Arafat accepted what Americans, Russians, United Nations, Israelis want him to do. He recognized Israel, hoping that one day there would be a state of Palestine. And they said, okay, no, you are not terrorists anymore. But now, after 34 years of Oslo agreement, what did we achieve? Where is Palestinian state? Israel must accept, if they want to stay in our region, they must respect the right of existence of Palestinian people. If they think that they are like South African regime,
I think very few people disagree with that.
Yeah. So therefore, we have to make empathy with Palestinian people. And now there is a continuing genocide in Gaza. Not as a Muslim, as a Turk, as someone from the region, as a human being. I call for all the leaders to make necessary pressure on Netanyahu to stop this genocide. And it is not Israel, it is Netanyahu. Half of the population of Israel, they are not in line with Netanyahu. Many Jewish scholars with whom I wrote a book recently, with Jewish scholars, they are against Netanyahu. Netanyahu does not mean Israel. Netanyahu does not mean especially Judaism or Jews. We do not identify with them. This war is not between Israel and Hamas, or between Israel and Palestine, or between Israel and Arabs, or between Israel and Muslims, or that. This war is between Netanyahu and humanity, according to International Court of Justice.
Ankara accuses Israel of being an occupying force in Gaza, yet Turkey still maintains troops in Cyprus. Does Turkey's foreign policy sometimes apply double standards in how it analyzes situations?
No. Those who know international law and respect international law, Turkish intervention, not occupation, intervention to Cyprus in 1974 was based on London and Zurich agreements of 1959 between Turkey
and occupation.
Not occupation, intervention. 1959 London and Zurich agreement made clear that there will be a Republic of Cyprus. If the status quo of Cyprus is being changed by anyone, all the three grantor states should re-establish status quo. For this re-establishment, they have the right to intervention. So it is not against international law. London and Zurich agreements did not give only right to Turkey, but also an obligation. It is very interesting. At that time, we didn't have Dimitris Avramopoulos in Athens, not Mitsotakis in Athens, not even Karamanlis in Athens. There was a military junta in Athens. So that military junta made a coup d'etat in Cyprus with Nikos Samson in order to annex Cyprus to Greece. So it is obligation on Turkey. At that time, in fact, Turkey, Greece, and Britain should have intervened together in order to re-establish status quo. But the military junta, aggressive policy, not against Turkey only. I am all type of military junta. In Turkey, I was against 12th of 1980 military coup d'etat. I have been always against military junta. In fact, Cyprus issue saved and liberated Greece from military junta and opened the way for Greece to go to European Union. If military junta was successful, if military junta was successful for this annexation, if Turkey would accept, then military junta would continue in Athens. Turkish population of Cyprus would have been oppressed. Peaceful Greek Cypriots would have been oppressed in Cyprus. Now, I am not trying to just to argument about this. We have to understand there is no comparison between Israeli attitude in Gaza. Israel doesn't have legitimacy. Any international law reference in Israel in his policy in West Bank and Gaza. International law says you are occupying force. In the case of Cyprus, from that time until now, we had negotiations. I was in negotiating team of Turkey in 2004, Bruggenstock negotiations. Kofi Annan brought a plan to us. If that plan was accepted by Greek Cypriot side, Turkey Cypriot side accepted. So there wouldn't have been any so-called occupation if Greek Cypriot said yes. Greek Cypriot side said no.
Discuss about a potential solution to the problem of the occupation.
No. If it was accepted by Greek Cypriot side, there would have been only a symbolic Turkish military presence together with Greek military presence, like before 1974. So we have to look for the future. Israeli foreign minister made this statement just to provocate Turkish-Greek relations. He said that if Turkey is respecting to international law, that is his statement. We should, as Turks and Greeks, we should not be provocated by a genocidal government of Israel.
In the Aegean, despite the relatively improved tone in communication between the two sides, the essence of the dispute remains. Greece maintains that the only issue is the delimitation of the continental shelf and the exclusive economic zone. Do you have a framework for a solution in mind that could serve as a basis for agreement between the two countries?
Yes, definitely. But we have to understand each other. When I became chief advisor, I declared zero problems with our neighbors. Many people thought that I am a utopic dreaming. But what did I want? Why did I say this? I am a historian. I know that there is no problem between even in the family. But I wanted to make a psychological shock therapy for Turkish people, that we are not surrounded by enemies. They are our neighbors. We can deal with them. So those who were criticizing me because of this principle, even in Turkey, especially certain nationalistic circles, how can be zero problem with Russia, with Greece, with Arabs, with Iran? They were surprised in 2010 when I was Minister of Foreign Affairs, together with Prime Minister Erdogan. We came here, we signed 22 agreements in a joint cabinet meeting with Papandreou and his ministers. In 2013, this time in the second high-level Cooperation Council meeting in Istanbul, I was Minister of Foreign Affairs. Greek Minister of Foreign Affairs was my dear friend Dimitri Avramopoulos, and two prime ministers we signed 25 agreements.
These are good agreements, but we need progress in the core of the problem.
What you have three options, let me say. You can act as if there is no problem between us. Oh, this is not realistic. We have problems. Secondly, you can act as being trapped, being brainwashed, being affected by these problems. You would only talk and shout each other your national positions. Third, you will continue to negotiate and dialogue. Meanwhile, you will develop your relations. After some time, people will know each other. And there will be an atmosphere, a psychology of mutual peace.
How much time do we need?
If you are, I can tell you on Aegean issue, there was exploratory talks when I was Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we made a significant progress. I don't want to go into details. I hope that exploratory talks can begin again based on this background. But no, today I was telling about casus belli issue, etc. In Turkish parliamentary decision and call, there was no casus belli. But 1st of June 1995, the Greek side declared to extend territorial waters to 12 miles of island. And Turkish government, and Turkish parliament made a statement saying that if this happens, that will risk our relations. Which type of risk? When we started exploratory talks, I told to my team, make empathy with Greek side. Try to understand what they want. And explain yourself and find a creative solution. 12 miles of territorial waters, you know what it means? It means Aegean Sea is close to Turkish ships. A Turkish ship from Istanbul to Izmir, from Izmir to Antalya cannot go without. Look, this is not realistic. Not realistic. And it is not inconsistent with international law as well. If Greece takes such a unilateral decision without negotiation, Turkey takes unilateral decision. Important is bilateral negotiation. And there could be some creative ways out of this. But nobody can expect from Turkey the longest coast of Mediterranean, all Mediterranean continental longest coast is Turkish longest coast.
In any case, I'm sure you will agree with me that 12 miles is not an act of war from the side of Greece.
If they do, this is this.
Especially in comparison with the casus belli.
What do you expect? What do you expect from Turkey? If Greece declares this, do you think that any Turkish government would accept
maybe the
that
decision of the court in Hague?
In Hague, if Greek side is ready to discuss all the issues together, not just continental shelves, but everything, that could be discussed there.
And that's where the problems start. Are you aware that Prime Minister Mitsotakis is sometimes criticized in Greece for being too soft on President Erdogan? What advice would you give him?
Those who are, I always say in Greek public opinion and Turkish public opinion, there are Turco-skeptics in Greece and Greco-skeptics in Turkey. They are helping each other. Once there is a provocative statement from Athens against Turkey by some circles, that is helping Turkish people who are Greco-skeptics in Ankara. They are helping each other. And you can be sure, several times I was criticized because of being soft to Greece. Can you imagine when there was Greek economic crisis in 2009-10? We signed 47 agreements in 2 years. In Turkey, I was criticized. Why are you helping Greece? And many of these agreements was for the sake of helping Greek economy and integrating Turkish to Greek economy, trying to have more trade. Why? Let them die. Let them, have more crisis.
There was some temptation for Turkey to create more problems to Greece.
Oh, what did I respond? Either we will be rich together as two neighbors, or we will be losing together. Turkish-Greek relation, everybody must learn one lesson. It is not a zero-sum game. Some Greeks think, if Turkey wins, we will lose. Some Turks think, if Greek loses, we will win. This is nonsense. Why don't we have both sides winning scenarios? And we are not global powers. At the end of the day, we need to accumulate power. We need to accumulate economic prosperity. Why are we spending money for, not for our people, but for the problems between us?
Because there is no trust between the two sides.
Trust could be achieved only if both sides made empathy. If Greek side thinks that we will corner Turkey in Aegean Sea, in Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean, through EU, through relations with Israel, through etc., Greece will not win anything. If Turkey does the same, Turkey will not do anything, will not win anything. So therefore, we are together for centuries, and for centuries, for eternity, we will be together. We should sit, talk, and find our solutions way out.
Former Prime Minister Samaras believes that Greece should not engage in dialogue with Turkey. However, if I remember correctly, he was once of your interlocutor about a decade ago. What do you recall from your collaboration with him?
as I said, many agreements were done. Interestingly, once when the leaders are in power, in Turks we say the crown. I mean, those who have the crown, the rationality will come. Means if you are in power, you are becoming more rational. In being in opposition, you don't carry any responsibility. You can say anything you want. But when you are in power,
he was in power, he was more rational.
Of course. Why we had bilateral relations. But in democracies, if you are in opposition. Now I am in opposition in Turkey. But I know foreign policy parameters. I am opposing Turkish government in the case of corruption, democratic freedoms, domestic issues. But foreign policy, I never criticize President Erdogan because of having good relations with Greece, because it is against my principle. This is wise politics. But if you criticize or corner Prime Minister Mitsotakis because of his statements or because of his recent good positive approach, it is not wise.
Do you believe the Turkish people, for their part, are ready to accept an agreement with Greece? Because there is a prevailing sense that governments often play the patriotism card precisely to satisfy their domestic audience.
I think sometimes we are exaggerating mutual feelings in a negative way. Turkish people are the people in the state. I don't see any Turkish people. Not in 1970s, 1980s, yes. But especially after when I declared zero problems and good neighborly relations with Greece, with Russia, no Turkish people or group of people, except some margins, see Greece as a threat. But I am surprised. In Greece, there is such a sense, that such an imagination, such an approach, as if Turkish people all are against Greece. No. Let me give you one interesting good example. When I was Prime Minister, we had a high-level cooperation council meeting timing. Usually we made it in Ankara or Istanbul. I said, I want to make it in Izmir. And Alexis Tsipras came to Izmir. When we walked in the street, people welcomed, applauded both of us. Nobody criticized me. Why are you walking in Izmir, which was occupied by Greeks 100 years ago? What is this Greek Prime Minister doing in the street of Izmir? Nobody said this. Similarly, when I came as Minister of Foreign Affairs here to Athens, in my first visit, I wanted to go to Florina, the Greek migrants from Turkey, from Istanbul. I especially wanted to go to that neighborhood. I met with them. They welcomed me. So, if leaders are positive, people will follow them. If leaders provocate patriotic, mutual, I don't want to say patriotism is understandable, but ultranationalism, far-right approach is a threat not only to Turks and Greeks, but a threat in Europe altogether.
How did you view the developments that led to the imprisonment of Ekrem İmamoğlu? Do you share the view that Turkey has now become an authoritarian state?
Look, I have two principles in my politics. One is rule of law. Nobody has impunity of law. So everybody can. And even several times I challenged to Erdogan, if you have any case against me, I am here. I am ready to give all of my belongings, etc. And I am ready. The second principle is clean politics. And here, both of these principles are important for me. If there is a case against corruption or a claim that there was a corruption, that claim should be implemented to AK Party governors, AK Party mayors as well. But if you exclude governmental mayors from the governing party, if you concentrate on the opposition mayors, this gives an impression that this is a political case rather than a judicial case. But if I am in power one day, I will implement political ethics, which was a main fight between me and, at that time, existing ruling party. In the party, that was the discussion. So the problem is not just the case itself, but the motivation of the case. And also, even if there is a case against a politician, this should be he or they should not be arrested. They should, after decision of the court, independent court decides to arrest, okay, everybody must respect. So we have to respect legal procedure, but we have to be objective in fighting against corruption.
2 last questions.
Of course.
A discussion is underway about Turkey's potential participation in European defense. Do you believe Ankara can contribute to Europe's security, even though Brussels seem not to trust Turkey when it comes to its EU accession prospects? Are these 2 different issues?
Who is Brussels?
Brussels is the center of the EU.
You know, one day, let me tell you an anecdote. I went to Brussels for ministerial meeting. I met with the ministers of member states. I said, I am looking for a ghost. They were shocked. Why? What is ghost? I said, look, in our bilateral relations, bilateral meetings in your capitals, for example, with my colleague, a Greek colleague in Athens, or with my German colleague in Berlin, or with my French colleague in France, you are all supporting Turkish membership to EU. But when you come together in Brussels, your common attitude is against this. I think there is a ghost around changing your mind.
Is there not a problem with the Turkish institutions, for instance?
Of course, there are mistakes committed by our side as well. I don't say we are, but in those days, usually European side slowed down. Now, what I am saying, Brussels is as the capital of European Union institutions. Of course, when there is an attitude of Brussels, I look to Commission, to Council, and to European institutions, not member states. I don't think that existing European leaders, as member state leaders, but also as European Union leaders, they are against cooperation with Turkey on security, because they know very well that they need Turkey for the new security architecture. And almost all of them are member of NATO as well. So how come now? Before Sweden and Finland, they were not member. Now they are also member. So you cannot differentiate between Turkish contribution to NATO and European security structure without Turkey is not meaningful. It will be meaningless. Same with British.
But it's a project that it needs credibility and trust.
Yes, trust is there. Same after Brexit. Will Britain play a role in European security architecture? Britain is not member of EU, but how come you can exclude?
They are all friends.
Yeah. And if EU accepted Turkey as a member instead of excluding because of Cyprus negotiations, which was accepted by Turkish side, and if Turkey today was member of EU, European security would have been much more stronger than ever. But if you ask my opinion, Turkish relation with EU should not be depending just on security. A trilateral three legs. One is security and foreign. Yes. Second is democratic criteria, democracy, and European values altogether. And third is economic cooperation and custom union. So a healthy Turkish-EU relation will base on these 3 pillars. Therefore, I would suggest to the Turkish government to look for a new horizon in Turkish-EU relations, and I would advise European leaders to approach Turkey in a much more open-minded manner.
And the last point. You've stated that the Greece-Israel-Egypt axis is aimed at isolating Turkey. But could it be that the close cooperation among these three countries reflects their concern over Ankara's regional ambitions? Could it be that Turkey is ultimately isolating itself through its own policies?
No, this I don't. To be frank, if I was in office, I wouldn't take it very seriously. Turkey is a big country. No three countries or others can isolate Turkey. What I meant isolation, I meant see the territorial waters. Therefore, we cannot accept. Of course, Greece can have any bilateral relation. This will not disturb Turkey. Turkey has also bilateral relation. But if this becomes cornering each other, then that will be a problem. Turkey and Greece should sit together first. Turkey can establish relations with Libya. Will Greece be happy on this? I know that some people in Greece is complaining about Turkish-Libyan relation. Is it realistic for Greece to cooperate with non-NATO member Israel against NATO member ally of Turkey? Or is it realistic that Cyprus, which cannot control the whole island, would be acting as if it is a very strong state? And why? Why are you focusing on this? It is better to focus on a new solution in Cyprus, and four parties, Turkey, Greece, Turkey Cypriots, Greek Cypriots, should sit around the table and establish a new regional
Not
context.
in The Hague, on the court.
Even in the court, if we are ready to discuss.
I say that because you have said it.
Yeah, but if it is all the issues is together, yes, we can discuss. Why do we need court? We are like neighbors do not need court to.
Because until now we are not able. The two countries are not able to agree.
Okay, then if we then bring all the issues to the table and go to the court. But if you say this is for me is not a problem, it's not a problem for you, but for the other side it is a problem. If you say you are saying like diverse, I mean, in the family, this is important for me. I want to bring this to the court. The other one is not important, but it is important for the other side. Therefore, I say, do empathy and be self-confident. Turkey will never attack Greece. It is not rational as to, but do not provocate each other. Do not see our relation as a zero-sum relation. Be self-confident. For example, with Russians, we had difficulties, territorial demands, etc., for centuries. But when we became self-confident, Turkish-Russian relation today is not like 20 years ago. Be self-confident, not big, not small country. We are equal neighbors. This should be the approach.
Thank you, Mr. Davutoglu.
Most welcome.